Welcome to the Overlady Reads, the show where I, the Overlord, have a wife, the Overlady, and she reads. And this week, we've read something a little bit different. We read Elantris, but not really. Lucy, what have you read this week?
Well, it wasn't a we, it was an I. Essentially, when I read Elantris, I read, the 10-year anniversary edition, which obviously wasn't out when you read it.
Yes.
So my edition came with additional content. And one of those things was an outtake
Deleted scene? It's one of Brandon's deleted scenes. He has a section on his website which has deleted scenes, and I believe this is on there. It's on the Kindle version for the 10th anniversary that Lucy read. And you can find it in here as well. The leatherbound.
But essentially, when Brandon originally wrote Elantris, he had an additional character who, because of a bunch of reasons, but the main one being the pacing, he threw it off massively. And it's a character that arrived 3/4 of the way into the book and just completely derailed the plot. So he ended up removing this character. And it was a character called Eton, who was supposed to be Raoden's brother.
Yes.
And he was known as the Mad Prince.
The Mad Prince.
So this is the Mad Prince. So Eton is a man with questionable sanity.
Yes, hence the name Mad Prince.
Yeah, kind of explains it. But he's someone that wasn't a very nice character, and it's all foreshadowed beforehand.
Yeah.
And essentially, because him and Raoden really didn't get along, Raoden ended up becoming quite savvy because he was always having to turn his brother's delusions against him.
Okay.
To fix issues. So his brother would say something and he'd have to loophole his way out of it. Which is why he got so good at bending the king's laws
against the king
because he was used to doing that with his brother, and it turned him into the man he was.
Yeah.
So I thought that was quite cool.
Yeah, that's cool. So he didn't just remove these chapters, he also removed all the foreshadowing from these chapters.
Yeah, because obviously he just isn't a character.
He just isn't in it, yeah.
But essentially it's explained that because his sanity was questionable, his dad sent him to a faraway plantation so that he wouldn't be a hindrance.
Yeah.
In court.
He just sent him to the farm, to the ranch. To the ranch, yeah.
The first time that we kind of meet him, as I said, it's 3/4 of the way through the book, so he's quite a late additional character.
This is just after Serene's been let go from Elantris, right? Come out of Elantris.
Yes. So you've got the bit beforehand where Raoden and Galadon climb up to the wall of Elantris and they look out and they see this massive army.
Yeah.
Which in the printed version is turned into Dilaf's army.
Yeah.
But it's the Mad Prince is in the original. So yeah, it's chapter 47. Just after that, Serene is on her way to Kin's home.
Yeah.
And the Mad Prince appears. So she's in her carriage. Everyone's like, damn, can't believe that you're okay and you're not
You're not Elantris-y anymore.
What's the word for it?
Hoed.
You're not Hoeded anymore.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, I'm okay. Can you guys go and get Royal? We've got to talk. So they go off to get Royal. And then she notices that there's a massive crowd outside the palace. And she's like, what on earth's going on?
Yeah.
So they get out the carriage to go and check it out. And as they're stood there, some black war horses arrive. And the guy leading them is in this red and black decorative armour. He's got the Aeon Eton on his breastplate.
Yeah.
And everyone's just staring at him, and he looks kind of like Raoden. So everyone's like, oh, Prince Raoden's back! Prince Raoden's back!
Oh, okay.
And I think it's Royal, or one of the ones that's with her, is like, no, that's not him.
That's not Raoden.
Eton. And everyone's like, oh, Eton, no, he's mad. What's he doing here?
Yeah.
And he pretty much just like rides up and he's like, this is mine now. And he just sort of like makes his way into the palace.
Oh, okay. Causes a bit of a Eton mess.
Bit of an Eton mess. So that's kind of where you first meet him. And then the next chapter is the Mad Prince and Hrathen.
Oh, yes.
Meeting.
Or Hrathen.
So then you get a scene where Hrathen goes to meet Prince Eton for the first time. I almost said Raven. He goes to meet Prince Eton for the first time. So he arrives in like Eton's tent because he's in a tent for some reason, even though they're currently in the palace.
Okay.
I don't know. I can understand why this got cut.
Yeah.
But he walks into the tent and there's like a line of servants all stood around Eton who sat down at a table.
Yeah.
Eating, but he's not eating normally because he's mad.
Because he's mad.
So he believes that silverware is too easy to poison. So he's not eating off of the plate, he's eating off the table itself.
Okay.
So the table is like covered with like chunks of meat, covered in gravy, all sorts of like foods. And he's not using any knives or forks, he's eating with his hands because you can't poison someone's hands.
I like this guy. I'm starting to come around to Eton.
As I said, I really liked Eton. I thought he was really interesting.
Yeah.
So Hrathen walks in and he's like, sit. And Hrathen's like, okay, I will do. He's like, yes, everybody that's in my presence must sit at all times. And Hrathen's like thinking, mate, there's like a line of people stood around you. That's not quite how that works.
Yeah.
But obviously, he's not going to say anything because he needs Eton on his side.
Yeah.
So Eton's like eating away at his food, getting gravy all down himself. Like,
Yeah.
I imagine it's like Lord of the Rings where the guy's eating the tomatoes. And there's just juices everywhere.
Yeah.
He calls one of the servants over to pour wine straight into his mouth because obviously cups can be poisoned.
Yeah.
But wine jugs can't. Which again, Hrathen is like, what on earth is going on here? So then Eton's like, well, you want me to join your religion, what are you going to offer me?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I'll let you keep your throne. And he's like, are you threatening me? But like, in a very calm way.
Yeah.
And Hrathen's like, no, I'm just saying, like...
Just stating facts.
Stating facts.
Hrathen does what Hrathen does, and he's like, I'm not threatening you, I'm just stating this is what's going to happen, and you need to deal with it.
Yeah.
Because I believe seen is a lot of Eton's scenes were transplanted to Telrai, the guy who betrays the main characters and joins D-Laugh, and so it's this is one of those scenes where it's basically they basically swapped out the names Eton to Telrai.
Yeah. So Hrathen then says, well, your dad was a fool because he didn't join me, and Eton's like, yes, we can both agree on that. My dad was a fool. And he's like, well, we both like combat, right? We both like weapons and like fighting. And Eton's like, yes, we do. He's like, can you teach me how to make siege engines and like siege towers and stuff? And Hrathen's like, yeah, we know how to make those. He's like, okay, I'll join your religion.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and Hrathen's like, that was really
unusual.
Easy.
Yeah.
He's like, how do you join your religion? And Hrathen's like, well, you've got to say a pledge. He's like, okay, I'm a deaf now.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Hrathen's like, no, you've got to say the actual pledge. So then he says it, and the prince just repeats it back to him, like, very blankly.
Yeah.
And, like, Hrathen's, like, looking into his eyes, and he's like, there's just...
nothing going on there.
Yeah, he's like, he's like, there's just, like, a well of madness. Like, he can tell that he's saying it, but he's not interested at all.
Yeah.
Like, he's very much just like, yeah, I am now. Cool. I am. What's the problem?
Yeah.
And then Eton turns to him and he's like, and next time you're in my presence, make sure you're standing, because every man in my presence must stand at all times. And Hrathen's like, okay. So he, like, slowly, like, backs out of the tent and, like...
so let's just turn my back on this guy. We're gonna,
Pretty much. So that's the end of that scene, and then the book sort of carries on as normal. You've got the next chapter where Serene's doing her fencing class.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, everything goes as normal. And then when it gets to the part where Hrathen and Dilaf were supposed to be talking in a perfume tent. I'm glad that makes sense to you because it's been a long time since I read it and I can't remember. But essentially that scene is replaced with another Hrathen and Eton scene.
Yeah.
Which got recycled into Warbreaker.
Oh, it's this scene, yes.
It is this scene. So, Hrathen goes to meet with Rhéoden to sort of go through some things now that he's part of the religion. So he goes to meet Eton on top of a roof.
Yeah.
And it looks out onto, like, one of, like, a big, beautiful park with, like, loads of trees and stuff.
Yeah.
And Eton just sort of looks at him and he's like, kneel before me. All men kneel in my presence. And Hrathen's like, you're technically under... Like, he's thinking this, he's not saying it out loud.
Yeah.
He's like, he's technically beneath me now. I shouldn't be kneeling for him.
Because he joined the religion.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Kings kneel for me. But he's like, but this guy's crazy. I'm not even gonna attempt to sort of, like, correct him.
Yeah.
So he kneels before him. And then Eton just sort of forgets he's there, picks up a stone from a tray that a servant's holding, and he tosses it out into the garden. He's, like, looking at it a while, and then he turns to Hrathen and he's like, have you ever played stones before? And Hrathen's like, I have never heard of this game. And he's like, it originated from Fjordell.
Yeah.
The place that he's from.
You got that right.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I didn't know.
Yeah.
So then he turns to Hrathen and he's like, have you ever played stones before? And Hrathen's like, never heard of it. And he's like, it originated from Fjordell, where you're from. And Hrathen's like,
don't think it did, mate.
It really didn't, but I'm not going to argue with you because you're crazy.
Yeah.
So then he agrees to play a game and he's like, so how do you play? And, like, he's shocked that he doesn't know how to play.
Yeah.
But he also doesn't explain the rules, he just tells him to throw the stone.
Yeah.
So Hrathen throws it over to near where the prince threw his first stone. And the prince is, like, wide-eyed shocked, like, oh, you told me you didn't know how to play. And Hrathen's like, I really don't. And he's like, ooh, that was a really lucky shot then.
So then this has obviously got recycled into the Warbreaker scene where Lightsong is playing the ball game with the other two returned and has no idea how they're playing and how to play, and they're all like, oh my god, you're so good at this game. That's that. There you go, yeah.
Pretty much. So, like, this game goes on for a couple of hours.
Oh my god.
Because Hrathen just can't work out what's going on, and the whole time he's just sort of, like, completely, like, thrown. He's like, this guy, he doesn't know what he's doing, he's clearly insane, he keeps asking me to do things, then changing his mind, he has a drink from a, like, vial of wine, says that it's disgusting, and then, like, 10 minutes later will drink from the same one and say it's the best thing he's ever tasted. Like, he's just so unpredictable. I don't know how to deal with this. Like, I've never met a person I can't understand before, and this is definitely the first time. So he kind of just is going along with it, playing this game of stones, even though he still can't tell how this works or what he's doing. And Eton will just randomly assign points to the throws.
Whatever throw,
like, from what he can tell. And then he sort of like, and then Eton's like, well, why did you even come here? I told you that I'd sign our religious agreement document after my coronation. And Hrathen's like, well, I didn't come here for that. I actually came to see when you were going to let the merchants come to land and set up the market. Because they're all docked in the dock at the moment. And Eton's like, I'll do it once they've been cleared of the plague. And Hrathen's like, what plague? And he's like, the plague from Fjordell. All those merchants coming from Fjordell can't land here until they've been cleared from having the plague that's happening in Fjordell. And Hrathen's like, oh my god, there is no plague.
What are you on about?
What are you on about? And he's like, your son told me about it. And Hrathem's like... And then he's like, yes, you do. The short guy that's always with you. He's like, D-Laugh. He's like, oh, goddamn, D-Laugh's got a scheme going on.
Yeah.
He clearly hasn't taken into account that the fact that the prince is mad.
Yeah.
And therefore, whatever scheme he's trying to pull is obviously not going to work.
Yeah.
So then he's like, no, I think D-Laugh might have got his information wrong. But you know what? I'm not going to argue with the prince. They just carry on playing their game. And then Eton declares he's won that round. And Hrathem's like, look, I've got to go and do some religious stuff.
I'm going to go to religions over here.
Yeah.
I can't spend all day throwing rocks, you know?
And he's like, well, when it comes to stones, if you forfeit, that's a lose, so I win. And Hrathem's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And that's the end of that scene. So then it carries on with the scene as normal where they all meet at Keen's house to sort of discuss their plan.
Yeah.
And it's the one where Rhéoden disguises himself and joins in.
Okay.
However, in this version, he's rooted out by Eton.
Yeah.
Instead of
Telrai.
Telrai. The names. It's been a long time.
It's been a while.
So then it carries on as normal, and instead of
Telrai.
Being killed in the fight that happens at night, it's Eton that gets killed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he gets killed by I can't remember the guy's name, but it's fine. Essentially, it's the same guy that killed Tellarine.
Telrai.
I can't do this.
Yeah.
The same guy that killed Telrai
There you
killed Eton instead in this version.
Yes.
And then it carries on as normal. And when the army comes to arrest Rhéoden
Yeah.
for the death of Eton, he goes with them, and Serene insists on going with him. So they're taken on horses to the castle, and even though Rhéoden's got his hands tied up, he still looks the part of a prince, and all of, like, the knights and stuff are still calling him my lord.
Yeah.
So he gets there, and the trial is, like, 10 of Eton's highest generals. And they essentially just say, look, we're going to be brief. Did you kill Eton?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah.
Okay.
And he's like, I didn't directly kill him, but the guy who did was following me, and as prince, I've got to take responsibility for those that follow me.
Okay.
So I didn't do it, but I did, so hold me accountable, essentially. And they're like, okay, well, do you have any last words? And he's like, no, but, like, you're gonna live to regret not live to regret this, but sort of like, you failed Eton, you know, whilst you were asleep in your beds, he died when you could have been there to protect him. Like, you failed in your job, and now you're failing the country. It's in chaos, and it needs support, it needs leadership, it needs guidance, and right now it hasn't got that, and it's going to fall.
Yeah.
And he essentially says, look, you're gonna kill me, that's fine, but I want you to make Serene queen.
Okay.
Like, she would have been my wife, and she'll make a great queen, so
Yeah.
make her queen.
Yeah.
And the guy that's in charge is like, okay, we'll take that into account, you know, well done for dying honourably.
Yeah.
We will make her queen in your stead. And, like, he then gets beheaded.
Wait, Rhéoden?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, with that, the burly general raised his sword, closed his eyes, and swung the weapon for Rhéoden's neck.
Oh, okay. So like cut
Yeah.
to black. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And there's the next chapter, the next line. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's that bit. And then it carries on with the Hrathen chapter as it
Normally
did
would.
before.
Yeah.
So then we cut to Hrathen's chapter. And Hrathen is watching the execution unfold. And he's incredibly jealous of the fact that Serene seems to love this guy and not him.
Yeah.
And he's very, very broody about it. He's like, the way she looks at him, so disgusting. I wish that was me.
He's very just Minister Frollo about it. Sorry, I mean,
Yeah.
Eaton and Hrathen about it, you know.
It was a very, very Frollo read. So then he realises that upon doing this, Rhéadan has essentially made himself a martyr. And now the whole army, in hearing what he said, is going to follow Serene and be hers.
Yeah.
Which means everything that he's been plotting to do with
Rai.
Terai won't work anymore, because he had been planning for, once Rhéadan had been executed, to get Terai to be the new...
Have the country switch over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he would have been in charge, essentially.
Yeah.
But now that it had been decided that Serene was going to be queen, that wouldn't happen. And she was not going to bend to his will. So this was bad for him. So he's very upset that he's no longer going to get control. But he can't do anything to stop it, because otherwise the army's going to turn against him. So he watches as the executioner closes his eyes and swings a sword.
Yeah.
But the sword misses.
Okay.
So King Eton, in the short time that he was king,
Yeah.
declared that this was how all executions were to take place.
Oh, okay.
That the guy swinging the sword has to have his eyes closed, and if the sword hits and the guy's killed, he was clearly guilty. And if the sword misses and doesn't kill them, then they're clearly innocent and free to go.
Okay, then.
So Rhéadan... So Rhéadan is now free to go and is now king of the country.
Yeah.
And immediately sets to work trying to get it sorted.
Yeah.
And that is kind of...
when Dylaf's big thing starts happening.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of like the end of like the big mad prince changes. So it sort of like stops there. But yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So that was Prince Eton. I quite liked him. I found him quite interesting. Yeah. I found it funny, like, the constant changing and switching. Like, I do like that they sort of repurpose some of the bits.
Yeah.
And obviously the Stones game, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And I hadn't read Warbreaker at this point.
Oh, you hadn't?
So I really liked the Stones game, so I'm glad that that was featured in Warbreaker. So then I was like, yay! And Ben was like, yeah, I get it's good, but why are you so excited?
I think I remember, because you told me about the Mad Prince chapters, and I was like, oh, okay, the deleted scenes. And then you read Warbreaker, and you were like, this is a Mad Prince scene. And I was like, we should make a video on this.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go.
A year later,
we finally managed to make a video on it.
But yeah, I quite liked him. I can understand 100% why he was cut.
Yeah.
But I do miss him as a character. He was quite cute.
Yeah. So yeah, you guys can read about the Mad Prince, Prince Eton, on brandonsanderson.com. Just go to the library section, deleted scenes, Elantris, and it's there. So, cool. Thank you guys for watching. Follow us on 17shot.com. Follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. We have a Patreon, so you can give us money.
Discord.
Oh, Discord. We have a Discord, which is where we spend a lot of our time. And yeah, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.